All right, it is 6 p.m. I will call the October 8th, 2024 regular meeting of the Wenatchee School District School Board to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Esta junta se lleva a cabo en inglés, pero contamos con servicio de traducción si alguien gusta hacer un comentario público o recibir explicaciones en español. Por favor, indique su necesidad. We will now work through the agenda. Are there any proposed changes or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, moving on. First up is the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda were sent to the board and posted online last week. The board has had an opportunity to review the material and individually ask the superintendent any question on any item on the agenda. The consent agenda for this meeting includes the September 24th, 2024 regular meeting minutes, vouchers and payroll, the personnel report, the surplus report, contracts, field trips, and non-substantive revisions to policies. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Maria, seconded by Martin. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. We will now move on to citizen comment. Let me check, Kim, do we have anyone signed up for citizen comment? Okay, I will move on from citizen comment. Next up is special presentations.
Yes, if you hadn't noticed, we have our mariachi group with us today. So a special presentation from our nationally ranked award-winning mariachi Wenatchee with director Eddie Cortez. So thank you all for being here and thank you for being able to make this evening with such short notice. But two reasons for them for being here tonight. The first is to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15th to October 15th. And the other is to showcase, which what we'll try to do once a month over the next few months, is to showcase a different student activity that are supported by our community through levy dollars. So mariachi is one of the many extracurricular activities funded by our levy. So Eddie and friends, thank you so much for being here and take it away. Excellent. Thank you all very much. I also asked Director Cortez if he had a student or two that might want to share what mariachi means to them in their educational journey. Enrique, yeah, we'll have you step on up to the microphone there. Let's make sure it's on.
Yeah, my name is Enrique Arredondo, and I'm president of Mariachi Wenatchee. And this group has just opened opportunities to me, like traveling, playing at local colleges, just playing like out of state. We placed nationally in New Mexico, so that's an accomplishment. You know, it opens opportunities for me as well to like show my culture, Hispanic, along with all the people here that just enjoyed playing instruments and playing music. So I think it's pretty cool that I find this program like being able to show our roots in a way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have one more student, Luisana.
Good evening. My name is Luisana Esquivel. I am a junior at Wenatchee High School. I have been a part of the mariachi program since 7th grade. I started at Foothills Middle School playing guitar, and I now play harp. The mariachi program has opened up a lot of opportunities, like Enrique has said before me. And I'm just so thankful that I was given the opportunity to be a part of this group this year. I see a lot of benefits from being a part of mariachi, not just by improving my musical skills, but with lifelong lasting skills as well, like persistency and knowing that it's okay to not have it right the first time, but to keep going, and determination. And I'm just so thankful that I was given the opportunity to have a program like this at my school. And I just hope that other high schools will soon be able to adapt a program like this one too.
Thank you.
And before we end our presentation here, I just want to thank the school board and everyone that supports our program. This is the 30th year anniversary that Wenatchee School District has had mariachi as part of their curriculum. So I think it's very special that we were the first in the state to have such a beautiful program. So thank you so much for the continuation and the support. So thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate you all being here tonight. What a great way to kick off our board meeting. Thanks, everyone. That's fantastic. Eddie, Director Cortez, thank you for sharing the 30th anniversary as well too. I hadn't put that together, so that's very special. Love that. Our next presentation tonight, we're taking a deeper dive into our strategic plan, Big Six student data points. So we'll learn more about the Big Six data point number one, high quality instruction. And we have the dream team of learning and teaching with us tonight. We have Heidi, we have Amber, we have our district trainers, Anaisa, Betsy, Brittany, and Lisa. Everyone's here tonight, and we're ready to hear from you all. Thanks for being here.
Now it's on? Okay, now we're good. All right. I couldn't come alone tonight because we're talking about important work that we're doing around our district. And these ladies behind me are the people that are doing this important work along with our teachers and administrators. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come tonight and share some information with you about high quality instruction and professional learning. Tonight's presentation provides an update on our ongoing professional learning efforts centered around high quality instruction. I'm joined by our Assistant Director of K-12 MTSS, Amber Burks, and along with our dedicated district training team, Anaisa Lemus, K-5 ELD trainer. I'm imagining they're waving behind me. Lisa Lewis, K-5 MTSS trainer. Brittany Acho, 612 ELD trainer. And Betsy Streen, 612 MTSS trainer. Last year's focus on WSC instructional strategies proved successful, though we continued to face challenges, particularly in encouraging students to fully engage in structured partner talk and academic discussions. With these challenges in mind, this year's professional development remains centered on these critical strategies, which are essential for multilingual learners and excellent for all learners. This evening, you'll learn more about these strategies, see how our training team provides ongoing support to help teachers implement them effectively, and discover the positive impact they're having on student learning across our district. And we're just going to take turns sharing a bit of information tonight. So Amber, you're up first.
Is it?
Soup.
All right. It's pretty hard to follow that mariachi performance. Woo! We believe that every minute should be spent using the practices that are most likely to be successful. There are hundreds of instructional strategies we could have chosen as our WSD essential strategies, and these are the strategies that we want to see guaranteed across our system. However, we have shifted our perspective from focusing on instructional practices that work to focusing on instructional practices that yield the best results. So here is a review that you'll see here of our professional development plan last year. And you can see that in K-5 across the screen and 6-12 across the screen, these are the instructional strategies we focused on. Strategies like math language routines, designated ELD, English language development, integrated ELD, and academic discussions, academic vocabulary and language. And the language domains that were really highlighted last year were speaking and listening of the 4 language domains. And as we were implementing those academic discussion and student talk strategies, we were, of course, taking feedback in from teachers and students, finding out what's working, what's not, what is a challenge. And you can see here on the screen that, for example, in a high school math class, some students, when they were asked how they felt when we were using the strategy of sentence stems and academic vocabulary teaching, and talking with their partners, how did they feel? And they said things like, it made explaining easier. Good, it made me sound smarter. That always feels good. I felt like I understood more. Good, because it made me get comfortable with the vocabulary. And it helped lengthen the conversation. Good and included. So students felt included because they were involved in talk. Some challenges that we heard were teachers would say, you know, I've set everything up, but the students just won't talk. Or students want to talk about what they want to talk about. They're embarrassed to talk, or they weren't sure how to set up structures like A-B partners. And also that students struggle with having a conversation that goes back and forth, sustainable conversation. So these formed our plan for what my team's going to talk about next.
All right. So at K-5, we were able to hear similar things, celebrations and challenges, and we had many opportunities to hear from these teachers. So some of the challenges were similar in secondary, having on-topic sustained conversations. Students won't talk. And we heard a lot of challenges in supporting teachers in setting up academic discussions. We also had celebrations, a couple quotes from students and teachers. One first grade teacher said, something as easy as identifying who is partner A and partner B made all the difference in our class turn and talks. We had a 5th grader that said, sentence stems help us stay on topic. So along with the challenges and celebrations that we heard from our teachers, we also saw similar data in our district-wide learning walks. Our focus last year was on teacher actions for providing opportunities for student talk, and we saw this happening in 80% of the classrooms we visited. This year, our focus will be more toward the student actions and accountability for student talk in order to eliminate that learned helplessness and provide strategies for students to use to go from being that passive learner to an active learner. Wenatchee School District is in its 2nd year of a new professional development model, which means we've been able to move beyond the orientation and integration stage of professional development that's very typical of most programs and more into the integration and refinement stage. The ultimate goal is to make these strategies become a natural part of instruction, so it becomes a habit to intentionally plan and use these strategies daily. So this year in elementary, we'll be continuing our focus on our essential strategy of building a classroom culture of accountable talk through structured conversations that will accelerate academic outcomes for our multilingual learners and all students. It is essential for students to speak the academic language in order to get to reading and writing.
And in secondary, for our 6 through 12 teachers in August, we continued our focus on integrated ELD, English language development, and really that's helping teachers understand that we're all supporters and teachers of language learners. And so that means we need to include speaking, writing, reading, and listening in all of our classes. So we again we came back and reviewed our understanding of academic discussion through the lens of culturally responsive instruction. That's what we did in August. And when we did that professional development for 6 through 12, we rolled out this graphic that really encompasses components of engaging language-rich classrooms. And I want to kind of just draw your attention to the bottom because we heard kind of the feedback that students won't talk, students are uncomfortable talking. So we developed kind of a system to have norms and procedures in our classrooms to help support that student talk and make them more comfortable. So we have a way to help students come up with another response rather than I don't know, which kind of lets them off the hook for wanting that 100% accountability. And when we have that expectation, we want high supports to go with that. So we also have norms of students speaking in complete sentences and then teachers providing those sentence frames to support that language. Structures, A/B partners, so I can talk to one other person before I'm talking in front of a whole group. Total response signals, which is we're providing some wait time and letting students show us that they're ready to share information. And then this idea of randomizing and rotating where we are not just calling on the few students who raise their hand, but everyone is accountable. We have a way to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share their ideas. And within that, like we just said, there's some essential foundational structures for student talk. We also incorporate supporting that language development by hoping that teachers are including visuals and specifically teaching academic vocabulary. We have strategies for 100% student engagement within the structure, which is our academic discussion. And then some how do we increase rigor by having some explicit reading and writing instruction routines.
So when teachers told us students aren't talking, sometimes it's because they don't know what to say. And we see that coming out as them saying, IDK, I don't know. I don't have an answer. So what we're doing this year is we are explicitly teaching them questions they can ask or statements they can make when they don't know what to say. We're rolling these out in English and Spanish for our newcomers, and we have different options depending on the grade level the students are at, but it's a way to hold students accountable to engage in this work, and then also hold teachers accountable to not let students off the hook and to make sure they are participating. One other strategy we're rolling out this year is called the QSSSA. I'm going to go through all my clicks here and then talk about it. It's a lot of clicks. So it's a research-based strategy from Seidlitz Education that we learned about at Wabe last year. And it really is just a structure for when teachers ask students a question, we're giving them a routine so they can think about it. They can give us a signal for wait time when they have an answer. They are given a sentence stem to promote thinking and kind of jumpstart their answer. They have an opportunity to share, and then teachers can assess what they're doing. We've been doing this at the kindergarten through a 12th grade level so far this fall. And so we've seen some pretty good success with it. And again, the expectation is 100% of students are involved, but we're also scaffolding so students are able to participate in these conversations. And another thing, Amber mentioned sustained conversations back and forth. Sometimes students are really good at, I'm saying one thing, and then my partner says one thing, and then we sit and stare at each other for the rest of the time. And so we have to teach them how to have actual conversations with each other about academics. We can use our WIT for that. So it's 3 questions or statements where students can summarize what they heard their partner saying. So we're using active listening on top of speaking. They can elaborate on what they heard their partner say, or they can paraphrase. And so this is just another opportunity for students to extend that conversation.
As Lisa shared earlier, this is our second year in this new professional development model. And we got the opportunity to follow up with teachers this last round of our professional development, and we are scheduled to do so after every professional development in every building. And in this next section, we're going to take a look at what professional development follow-up looks like and what the impact on student learning is. One of the challenges that we heard, as Brittany was saying earlier, was that sometimes students just are really not sure what to say when asked a question. And this is a real life skill that we need to teach because you go to the doctor's appointment, and if you don't have an answer, an answer is expected of you. So these are phrases. When we went to our site visit at Lewis and Clark, Lisa and I got to model the instead of I don't know strategy in all of the first grade classrooms in English and Spanish. Students are explicitly taught phrases to say instead of I don't know to support student talk and academic discussions. So we have a quick video to share.
Would you please repeat the question? Will you do that with me? Would you please repeat the question? Notice how polite that sounded, how adult that sounded, such great words in that complete sentence. If someone asks me a question and maybe I didn't hear them, or maybe I didn't understand the question, then I can say, instead of this, I can say, would you please repeat the question? One more time with me. Would you please repeat the question?
En español. En español. Por favor. ¿Puedes repetir la pregunta, por favor? Say that with me. ¿Puedes repetir la pregunta, por favor? Let's do this. And we do actions. We like to use actions because it taps into a different part of our brain and it helps us remember better. So in Spanish, what?
My clicker isn't working. Oh, sorry. So shortly after Lisa and I went into model, we received emails from the team, and here are some quotes from some of the teachers. Thank you for coming and teaching this to the students in both languages. That same day, students were already applying the strategies and reminding each other of them. Thank you for coming into our classrooms. Students are using the phrases you both taught and using the motions to go with it.
And we're not just seeing this at the elementary level. So one of our EL specialists over at Pioneer took it upon herself to create, instead of, I don't know, posters in English and Spanish for all of the classrooms at Pioneer that had newcomers. And then she teaches the newcomer class. She explicitly taught them how to say these phrases and how to advocate for themselves. So again, this is something we can see in first grade, and then we can see it in middle school and high school. Student impact also looks like, again, we have a picture here from Orchard Middle School. These students are working on writing an introduction paragraph using sentence stems based on the unit they've just done. So they're writing about their hobbies. They're talking about it as they're doing, they're using that English vocabulary. And so all students need sentence stems, and we can encourage our newcomers, who some of these students have only been here for 2-3 weeks now, and they're already beginning to write in English and try and make those connections.
We're also seeing different kinds of contents using some of these strategies. So this was a slide from an art teacher at Orchard Middle School who Brittany and I got to collaborate with. She was looking for an entry routine to get her students thinking and talking about photographs because she's teaching a photography class. So we were able to come up with a question with her, have some sentence stems. The kids wrote those down, and even all the newcomers were able to write the sentences, and then they all shared with their partner. And I believe we did have 100% participation. So that was the goal. We also have a high school CTE teacher who is, it's a medical based class. And so these structures become even more important, even if we're a native English speaker, when we're tackling vocabulary that's new to us. So they can be helpful in that way as well. So we notice these sentence frames to support the language and visuals as well. And Westside High School also has a goal right now that they would begin their classes with some type of SEL opener and getting kids involved in academic discussions. So when I was there recently, we can see that one of their English teachers did have a question with stems, and the students were all involved in discussing the answers to those questions. So we're seeing this like widespread 6 through 12 as well.
And this is an AVID class. These are AVID seniors with Tanner Dotzauer. The students, they are doing the hard work, the very rigorous work of writing essays for the college entrance. And they're using their collaborative structures in order to give feedback to one another.
During a different site visit, Lisa and I got to model in the different steps of the explicit genre writing process in grades kinder through 5th grade. Here are some kindergartners that participated in shared informational writing about the science topic meteorologists. And these are examples of informational writing in a kindergarten class in another building. And another group of 1st graders engaging in conversations to share their knowledge about the science topic shadows. And student talk last year was a big focus in our professional development, and it continues to be an essential part even throughout the writing process. We know that students must be able to speak before they write.
All right, so in 2nd grade, Anais and I were able to go in and do I did an active reading process with them and understanding a text as part of that explicit genre writing. At the same time, we had 2nd grade teachers and administrators observe and learn from us, and we did that in all K through 5 classrooms. So in this building, so the administrators and the teachers would watch and we would debrief. And that debrief time was so valuable that in follow-up conversations with the administrators, they said that was the ask for next time, is that they have more time to debrief and talk about questions and discuss next steps in that explicit genre writing.
Okay, and here you see the student impact in a small group. This is Peyton Allen at Pioneer Middle School, and she's working with an intervention group. And we know students here are getting more time and more opportunity for language comprehension. She's using visuals for teaching academic vocabulary. She's using sentence stems, and students are speaking in those beautiful, complete sentences, complex sentences, and while practicing their academic vocabulary. So, okay, so follow-up support looks like in the same way that we selected instructional strategies that have the most impact on student learning, our follow-up support that we've selected, all of these items, they have the most impact on adult learning. So these regular visits to schools, being in schools, meeting with PLCs, lit teams, and individual teachers, co-planning with teachers, modeling, co-teaching, debriefing, planning with the administrators, and we, Heidi, in a minute here, we'll talk about how we dedicate monthly time during our instructional leadership meetings with all of our administrators, our instructional leaders, to support them with their implementation goals, their progress toward their goals, and to be monitoring student learning. So we have that built in monthly. And I just want to give a shout out to my team, because this follow-up, this is where the work happens, when we're right in there with in buildings with teachers and administrators, walking side by side with them.
So this Friday, teachers have another opportunity to receive from some professional development. So we're hard at work developing that right now to be ready. And for secondary teachers, on Friday, we'll be diving into, again, continuing that thread of integrated ELD, but through the lens of structured reading and writing, and also kind of diving back into that culturally responsive instruction.
And in elementary this Friday, we'll be continuing working through the classroom culture of accountable talk and structured conversations. We're also bringing back our math language routines to make sure teachers didn't forget about those. So examples of how to use that QSSSA in our math language routines. We're also going to be continuing our work with the explicit genre writing process and supporting teachers in getting started or continuing with next steps.
Aren't they a fabulous team? We are so lucky here. This is amazing. So tonight you've had the opportunity to learn how our professional development and support are focused on our WSD essential strategies, which are specifically designed to support multilingual learners and are excellent for all learners. These strategies are being implemented across our district, as you saw evidence tonight, and being supported across our district. with our teachers delivering high quality instruction that is making a meaningful difference and impact on student learning. Big Six outcome number one. In addition, our administrators have each set a specific implementation goal for these essential strategies to further enhance and celebrate the outstanding instruction and student engagement happening in our classrooms. To my left, and I know the writing is not big enough for you to read from here, but to my left, the posters highlight the work of our administrators in driving these goals forward. As you can see, the Wenatchee School District is fully committed to improving academic outcomes for all students through high quality instruction. District learning walks are our key, whoops, I think, oh, yep, there, it's still there. I don't need to click. District learning walks are a key method for gathering data on our Big Six priority number one, high quality instruction. On October 17th, you will have the opportunity to participate in your first learning walk of the year at Washington Elementary School. That's the big reveal. Washington Elementary is our first stop, where you will witness firsthand the evidence of high quality instruction and high levels of student engagement in action. And we're really excited to take you on that walk and be able to see the great work that's happening across our district. All right. So noticings, wonderings.
All right, I had one.
Mhm.
It seems like that was a lot. When does that happen during the school day?
Great question. Yeah, so we have scheduled days for our trainers to be in buildings. The principals got calendar invitations and schedules before school started. And so they have been making the rounds at elementary, 2 schools a week for a full day. And last year, our trainers also visited schools, and then secondary has been just hitting the schools on those days also and meeting with teachers. At the elementary, this first round, we asked our administrators to really play a part in planning that day. Last year, our trainers went in and teachers would request, hey, I need you to come here. Hey, I need you to come there. But it wasn't necessarily, if they didn't ask, then they didn't get that support. And so this year, knowing that we really wanted to utilize the amazingness of the trainers in supporting the work, we asked our administrators to work with their lit teams or their entire staff to decide what does that day look like. So you could see that at the one school, they subbed out they subbed out grade levels so that the teachers could all go and watch that lesson happen together, which is super powerful. And then they could have that conversation all together. And then they all have that same understanding as they go back and plan with their PLCs. So that was round one. Round two will look similar, and we'll just continue working that way throughout this year. We've found it to be really successful and valuable for our teachers.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Academic language for board members. What does G and V stand for?
Oh, yeah, great question. It's just what we throw out there. Guaranteed and viable curriculum. So when we talk about guaranteed, we say that no matter what classroom a child is in or a student is in, whether at Sunny Slope or Lincoln or Newberry or Pioneer or any school, they're going to get the same priority standards, the same common formative assessments, the same instructional strategies as any other student across the district. So that's guaranteed. And then viable is it doable in the amount of time? So we have pared down our standards to really focus on the standards that are the most important standards in each grade level. So guaranteed, we guarantee it across our system. And viable is we make sure that we allow the time for it to happen. Yeah, great question. Thank you.
And then I have a question on follow-up support, but
Mhm.
turned around for you. I can see the structure you have.
Mhm.
Normally, when you go out and do a training, this is the way I would frame it. You deliberately delay and wait to see departures, changes, differences in retention, and then go and say, okay, what's different? Which then gives you a feedback loop for your next cycle of planning. What do you do in that area to get information from the schools back to you?
Yeah, we get information in a lot of different ways. The main way that we get information is boots on the ground. they're in the buildings, they're meeting with teams, they're talking with teachers. So we get that feedback loop often, and then we have a running notes that we sit and analyze and say, okay, we're seeing this, so we need to do this. We have had just last year, conversations with teachers, but oftentimes they're not afraid to reach out and email also and say, hey, we need this, or this isn't working. Also having time to meet with our administrators, because they see what's happening and they're in the classrooms all the time, trying to carve out that time to get in there and see what's happening. And so as we meet monthly and we talk about our implementation, how is implementation going? What are you seeing in your classrooms? That's another opportunity for us to get that feedback, because they know what's happening in their buildings on a daily basis. They also get feedback from their lit team. So it's multifaceted. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the work that you guys are doing. I have no questions, but I just want to make a comment. So the three of us are reading The Anxious Generation for the policy committee. But I would recommend that maybe everybody on the board should read the book, and it's just what we're talking about, what you're presenting on here, ties back to what this book is saying and the research behind the great rewiring of children's brains.
Oh.
And the challenges, conversation skills. This device has changed the way our children think. And we hear it all the time, all school board members. Well, we need to go back to teaching reading, writing, math, and science. Well, we're not there anymore. We have to rewire the brain to think the way our brain was when we were in school, when we didn't have distractions of social media, just one-on-one devices, cell phones, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that book has really shifted the way I think about our learners, as a parent, as a supervisor at work. And the first several slides just resonated to that book, because again, it just goes back to, you mentioned that these are life skills that we need to teach our kids. And had I not started reading that book, I'm not through it. I would have think like, really, we'd have to teach our kids how to communicate. Like, this is something they do every day. But it goes back to that rewiring of the brain, because it's a completely different world than it was before 1995, I believe, was when it started shifting.
Yeah.
So thank you for the work. It's hard work. I mean, it almost feels like we're, children's brains are taking steps back, but I appreciate the work and the research that goes behind this.
Thank you so much. That's fascinating. Very interesting. We were just having a discussion today about how we need to keep things fast paced.
Yeah.
It's to keep attention, right? And so our routines provide teachers that opportunity to they don't have to think about what's coming next, because it's a routine now. I know what we're going to do now. And so that's another way that we can continue to engage our kids and keep them engaged in the classroom when they're learning. So yeah, thank you so much. Awesome. All right.
Just kind of a related comment or question, I guess. I was wondering if you do, because of our dependency on devices and knowing that kids don't text with probably full and complete sentences or anything like that, if you do see some more regressive behavior at older levels and having to do strategies at that level, because I can see it being, I would love for kids to be speaking in fluid sentences all the time, but it's kind of not the way, it started with texting and now you hear it shorthand, and you can see it in the slide, IDK, and it's a lot of parents may not know what it is, but I'm young enough to know what it is, but it's just, that's kind of the way they're starting to talk. So I can imagine it being something to really have to focus on, sort of unlearning and relearning, and maybe having to do it a lot as devices are still so prevalent. And
absolutely. And those sentence frames are so critical for that. You saw it in a CTE class at the high school. Sentence frames are going to help our kids go from this to this. And then when they start to get used to that, and they're doing it with a partner too, they're talking to another student using those sentences. One of one of our principals, the goal was no matter who a student is talking to, any staff member, that staff member will ask them to use a complete sentence. I mean, that's huge across the system. That's something that we really noticed was missing, and we see it everywhere. So we want to build that because they need that academic language. They need that academic context to be able to communicate effectively. So yeah, we're working on it, and we're working on it kindergarten through 12th grade, and 12th grade doesn't have it either, and kindergarten doesn't have it either. So that's why we're doing this work, to really help them, lift them up, and help them be academically successful and successful in life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell my kids, you must text me in a full and complete sentence with punctuation, or I won't
They're fast
respond.
at it.
And I think Martin asked my question, so I won't belabor that, but it was a little bit about the monitoring and the
Yeah.
you know, what metrics do you use? Because this is not something you can test to necessarily, but it sounds like you get feedback more than
do.
the site visits, you get it through.
Yeah, and
comments
with
from
learning
teachers.
walks,
Yeah.
we see a lot in learning walks. And that gives us an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with an assistant principal or a principal as we're doing it. So it gives us that opportunity to talk about, what did you see? What would be your next step? So it's happening a lot, and we look at that learning walk data throughout the year too. So we can really zoom in and see, is that student talk section starting to grow? That's what our goal is this year.
No, thank you.
All
I
right,
just want to
thank
say
you.
thank you for everybody. Thank you for everyone for coming tonight. And just want to illustrate how much I appreciate there's two parts to what we're seeing here. There are lots of different parts, but what we're seeing is we're seeing leadership and guidance on where we want instruction to be in the Wenatchee School District, but also that responsiveness to what are the struggles as well. So working with the learning and teaching team, but also working with our administrators, and then at the classroom level, both to guide and shape what instruction looks like and to be responsive. So thank you for that work. That's incredible.
Thank you. It's great stuff happening out there. Can't wait for you to see it.
All right, the dream team of learning and teaching. Thank you so much. Next up, we have levy information. So the Wenatchee School District has a renewal levy coming up on the ballot in February of 2025. And we have our Director of Communications and Amazingness, Diana Hagland, is here to give you a Levy 101 presentation. We also have coming up on Monday, we have a board workshop that will dive into some other levy considerations as well. We'll have Piper Sandler and Foster Garvey with us on Monday to discuss as well. So thanks, Diana, for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we get amazingness added to my business cards and my name tag?
I think we need that. Yes.
Excellent. Well, board, it's a pleasure to be in front of you. Just want to say what an honor it is to serve as your public information officer. That's when we talk about levies and bonds and all of those types of campaigns, roles like communications are really essential pieces in making sure that the public knows the importance of those initiatives and also kind of what's involved in those funds. So just want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank Martin for his past involvement. In 2021, way back then, is when we renewed our levy the last time. And Martin served as the chair from the board. And so I appreciate all the time and energy that he put into that. It was a much different time than we're in right now to pass a levy during the COVID lockdown. So we learned a lot of things that will help us as we look forward to this next renewal. But I just want to thank him for his service because he went above and beyond what was needed at that time. So with that introduction, we'll go ahead and start my slide presentation. Liz, can you tee that up? And while Liz is doing that too, I also want to acknowledge that you had the opportunity to experience two things that are levy funded just this evening. Tonight, we were out at the softball field, and while the field itself may not be levy funded fully, the student athletes who are participating in sports are doing that thanks to the levy. So all of our middle school and high school athletics are levy funded, and I'll get deeper into that as I go through my presentation. But also mariachi tonight. Again, that's a great example, a shining example across our district of how levy dollars support student enrichment and also engagement. Oftentimes, those programs are the ones that bring students to school and keep them connected in school every day. So just two great examples that you got to experience and immerse yourselves in today that are levy funded. So the purpose of my presentation tonight is really a primer. This is the start of our conversations as the district, as a board, about the renewal of the EP&O levy. Now, knowing that many of you were not on the board in 2021, we wanted to take the opportunity to really go back to basics about what is a levy and walk you through all of the components of that. We also want to take this opportunity to help educate our public who may be watching tonight live, or maybe they watch this video later, or they read our board summary. So we really see this as a valuable tool to help educate the public too on just some of the basics that have to do with the EP&O levy. We love acronyms, so here's one. It's Educational Programs and Operations. That's what EP&O stands for. So we're going to jump right in. So what is a levy? At its foundation, levies are for learning. That's the best way that you can think about what a levy is. But essentially, it funds learning and operations. So we can't learn if we're not operating properly. The levy represents the community's investment in our schools. And if you see my pie chart up there, you can see that little neon green slice. That 10% slice is the levy. This is our current levy projection right now. So 10% of our budget, or $12.9 million of our total budgeted revenues, are levy dollars. Levies fill the gap between what the state funds as basic education through their prototypical funding model and what it actually costs to educate students and provide them with a well-rounded learning experience here in the Wenatchee School District. Please note that the graph you're looking at there does not include matching funds, or what we call LEA, of approximately $1.34 million. So again, 10%, it backfills what the state doesn't fund for education. So some levy basics about our particular situation. The Wenatchee School District's EP&O levy, it's going to expire in December of 2025. The current EP&O levy was renewed in 2021, as I mentioned, so that was the last time we went to voters and asked them to renew it. The renewal levy will be on the ballot February 11th, 2025. The levy is not a new tax. We're not adding something new. We're simply renewing that levy, and I'll talk about that here in just a sec. So why is the levy a renewal? The Washington Constitution, it limits educational programs and operation levies to a period not to exceed 4 years. Some school districts do 3. In the Wenatchee School District, we do 4. So every 4 years, just like renewing your Netflix subscription, and I should note that used to say magazine, so I'm trying to update this to be current. But every 4 years, we got to update that subscription. We got to go out to our voters and ask them to renew that levy. The district's proposed 4-year EP&O levy will replace the one that's about to expire. Again, not a new tax. Let's see here. So you're probably asking yourself, how is a levy different than a bond? Now, I said early on that levies are for learning, and levies fund programs, they fund operations, they fund technology, and even smaller capital projects. They're between 2 and 4 years, like I mentioned, and then levies require a simple majority of yes votes to pass, and that's 50% plus 1 to be approved by Washington voters. Bonds are for building. So those are for constructing buildings. It's for improving and modernizing or building new buildings. They tend to last between 20 and 30 years. And bonds require a supermajority. That's 60% yes vote. And we have to achieve a 40% validation of the previous election turnout in order for that to pass as well. So there's a few caveats that come with a bond versus a levy. Something I wanted to point out here was, you might be asking yourself too, when did Wenatchee School District pass a bond? Have we been successful with bonds in the past? And the answer is yes. The last bond that we passed was in 2014, and that was for the modernization and the rebuild of Washington Elementary and Lincoln Elementary. So that was quite some time ago. We unfortunately failed to pass a bond to modernize and rebuild Wenatchee High School in 2018. That was a $120 million bond. Had that passed by voters, we were short by 300 votes. Had that passed, students would be attending a brand new Wenatchee High School today. These students sitting right here would be attending that school today. So if we think back on that. So those are two scenarios in terms of bonds that we currently exist in. Yeah, it's a big impact for sure. But again, levies are for learning, and that's what we're talking about, and bonds are for building. There are different types of levies, and let's talk about those really quickly. So we know what an educational program and operation levy is, but there's also capital levies or capital project levies. These can be used for larger improvement projects, but they're smaller than bonds. They can be used for infrastructure, infrastructure improvements for any of our facilities. There's also such thing as a technology levy, and those can be used to fund instructional technology, our devices, our network, and then also funding our technology staff. Right now, Wenatchee School District, again, is only looking to renew our EP&O levies, but those are two different levies that are possible and allowable in the state of Washington. So who votes on a levy? Residents of Wenatchee and Malaga. People have to live within the Wenatchee School District to vote on our levy. They have to be registered in Chelan County, be 18 years or older, and be a U.S. citizen. Unfortunately, parents who choice their children into the Wenatchee School District from outside of our boundaries are not eligible to vote in our particular election. However, they are great supporters and can encourage their friends and neighbors who do maybe live in our boundaries to come out and support a levy initiative. So speaking of support, the Wenatchee School District has a history of community support for passing our levies. You can see over the last 30 years, we've trended pretty well in about 63% yes rate for passage. Our most recent levy that we renewed in 2021, we passed with a rate of 63.18. And again, that was during the COVID pandemic. But you can see we have a history of community support. Our community truly does support the programs and services and operations that come through an EP&O levy. Another important thing to note is Wenatchee School District's commitment to being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. There's only so many dollars to go around. So making smart financial moves benefits taxpayers in the long run, as well as the district. We refinanced our bond, as you know, our current bond from 2014, just this last year. By doing that, we're putting $6.6 million back into the pockets of our local taxpayers. That's Wenatchee and Malaga residents. They'll be seeing that over the next 9 years. So again, we're making smart moves with our money to make sure that we're creating room potentially for going out for that levy again, that levy renewal. But we, honor and appreciate every dollar that we get, and certainly understand the investment that our community is making in our school. The other thing that the district has worked hard to do is maintain a strong credit rating. By making smart moves like the refinance and others, if we continue a strong credit rating, if we go down the road and maybe we're looking at a bond in the future, we can have a more favorable rate, because just like you at home going out for a credit card or to buy a home, the district also needs to maintain a good credit score in order to be eligible for good financial rates down the road and borrowing fees and all of those things. So what does the levy fund? As I mentioned, it's our community's investment. It helps to fill the gap between what the state funds as basic education and what it actually takes to run our school district. I'm going to show you a list here in just a minute to give you a greater sense of some of the specifics that it covers. But I wanted to point out too that many of the programs, resources, and opportunities that are generated through levy dollars, our community benefits from. So if your student attends Pinnacles Prep or potentially a private school, those students can benefit from some of our levy funded programs, for example, the district musical. So those aren't just necessarily utilized by our district, but there's a spillover effect that happens that benefits our entire community. So please keep in mind that this is not a comprehensive list, because the levy, as I like to think about it, is woven through the fabric of the Wenatchee School District. Almost every program in our district, every staff person in some way, shape, or form is impacted by levy dollars. But to give you a sense of some of the kind of the big areas or areas that our parents and community and public might be aware of, one of the biggest areas that levy dollars really come into play is through technology. Our technology staff is funded through levy dollars. The devices that our students use are funded through those dollars. Also the support, and I put cybersecurity because that's a big thing we're contending with right now. But all of those services are funded through levy dollars. Also athletics, I mentioned at the middle school and high school level, that includes our unified athletics programs are all levy funded. Our extracurricular programs, for example, student club advisors through stipends are funded through levy, as well as the district musical, whose tickets are going to be going on sale here really quick. Those are a great example of how levy dollars are supporting extracurricular opportunities for our students. Also, student safety, school resource officers, our security guards, and safety and security staff. Music is another big one. Our K-12 music teachers or music specialists, band and music equipment, all levy funded. Our art specialists as well, and our elementary art materials all are funded through levy dollars. Elementary assistant principals and also staffing district-wide that goes above and beyond what the state funds. Our maintenance and operations department is greatly impacted by levy dollars. They receive supplies, equipment, and repairs, repairs such as our heating and cooling system that needs to be taken care of in different buildings. Also, custodial and maintenance and operations staff are funded through levy. While we do have a transportation vehicle fund, not all of the transportation costs are funded by that fund. Levy dollars come into play in the form of supplies and parts, motor pool, as well as fuel for those vehicles. Our Science Resource Center is funded through levy dollars. And just this week, second graders were out at the Saddle Rock Trailhead, immersing themselves in learning about erosion and landforms and how all of those things work together. There are a substantial number of students, all K-5 elementary students, including private school students, participate in Wenatchee School District science field experiences. So the kits that they use, the equipment, those field trips, the buses, the subs, all of those things are covered through the levy dollars. Enrichment, such as advanced placement courses, AP courses, our high cap or highly capable program, as well as AVID, are levy funded. Special education, professional services and staffing above and beyond what the state provides in our special education allocation. And then teacher professional development. You just saw it. I couldn't tell you about it any better than the crew that was just here. That is funded through levy dollars. So that investment in that professional development in our educators to ensure we're delivering a high quality learning experience for our students, as well as the professional development days when they can get together and they can do some of those trainings and PLC times. Also maintaining class sizes. So providing additional staffing to ensure that we're keeping class sizes at a reasonable level. And again, not a comprehensive list. Some of these programs are fully and partially funded, but it gives you an idea of what that, current 10% budget, levy budget, the widespread impact that it has. So how are levies funded? We talked a little bit about this, but levies are funded by gathering property tax from every resident and parcel owner within our boundary. Certain properties like federal lands, as well as tribal lands and those owned by senior citizens may be eligible for a decreased tax rate. So that's something that is of benefit for those individuals who own those properties. And what is a levy rate? So how exactly does that work? This is an oversimplification of how levy rates work. And a levy rate is essentially a price tag for supporting schools. And a levy rate is determined as the amount collected per $1,000 of assessed property value. And in my example up there, you can see that a $1 levy rate at $1,000 there's a typo on there that should say assessed value equals about $400. So if the levy rate were $1 per $1,000 per assessed value, a homeowner could expect to pay about $400 a year in assessed taxes. Is there a limit on how much we can collect for a levy? And the answer is yes. The maximum dollar amount is known as the levy lid. You've probably heard that. This is a phenomenon that was created as part of the McCleary decision that came into play and affected the way schools are funded several years ago. Levy rates for the district are currently capped at $2.50 per $1,000 of assessed value, and that applies to every school district in Washington state. A couple of other things to take note of. The $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed value is required, at least $1.50 is required for us to receive levy equalization dollars, or LEA. And that also enrollment plays a factor in the amount that the district is able to collect. So that it is a variable that's in there. And we'll go into more detail about that too during the workshop on Monday. So how much will the levy renewal cost? Well, currently our rate is $2.10 per $1,000 of assessed home value. That's what voters approved in 2021. So voters are paying approximately $840 per year for a house that's valued at $400,000, just to give you a sense of where we're at currently. And again, we're going to go into a lot more detail about these rates on Monday during the workshop. It's the board's responsibility to approve the renewal levy rate. So what rate are we going to go to? Are we going to continue at $2.10, or will we adjust that rate? You'll be doing that through a resolution in November. And the new rate is what voters will see on the ballot in February. And the collection on the renewal levy actually doesn't take place until 2026. So we do all this work right now, but the collection on what you approve and what the voters hopefully will approve as well doesn't actually take place until 2026. So a couple notes about levy timing. And again, this is something we'll talk about, but the state only allows for 4 dates for levy elections: February, April, August, and November. The timing, when we think about the timing of a levy, it really is a crucial conversation. We want to make sure that we have good voter turnout. We want to think about the budget cycle that we're in. We also want to think about tax implications. So what is our voting base? Do we feel like they're going to approve? We don't want to go too high. We also don't want to go too low. Also, we want to look at the collection schedule. So we want to make sure that we're in the right cycle. So there's not a gap between the time that it gets approved and when we actually need to do the collection. We have already set in motion plans to renew our levy on February 11th during a special election. Historically, we have gone out at that time for renewing our levy. So this continues that trend of when Wenatchee School District asks voters to renew that 4-year levy. I already mentioned this, but yes, there is a tax break for seniors. We have a lot of seniors in the Wenatchee community compared to some of our neighbors. And this is a really important thing for people to note. If they have questions, they can contact the county's assessor's office and they can give them information about how they could qualify and if they qualify to be able to get that reduction. Also, people who have a disability or are a veteran could also potentially see a reduction in their property taxes as well. So what happens if it doesn't renew? This is a big question on my mind, and I'm sure on a lot of people's minds. And unfortunately, this is an all too real situation that is playing out just 1 hour to the east of us in the Moses Lake School District. The Moses Lake School District had a double levy failure, and they're dealing with the aftermath of what happens when the community does not renew that levy. So if we don't renew our levy, we are permitted to rerun it. We can run it again in April. So we could go back out and ask voters again if they would like to vote yes and approve that renewal levy. However, if in April they say no and it's failed twice, we must wait 1 calendar year before we can renew it again, or we can go out to voters again. And that's the situation that Moses Lake is in right now. So we wanted to display the impact of the levy failure just to give you a sense of, again, the magnitude in which we would experience this. So again, failure to renew that levy in 2025 in February, it's going to result in some severe budget cuts. We're going to feel this in a really big way that will impact staffing and the delivery of student programs. The preliminary amount that we're projecting for the levy based on the assumption that we would renew it at $2.10. So there's some assumptions built into this. that amount would be $16.7 million. So that's just the levy amount. So the levy amount at $16.7 million would be what would be potentially lost. Plus, we would also lose the LEA, the state matching dollars, at $275,000. On top of that, the district still needs to make staffing reductions in order to balance staffing with declining enrollment. When you combine those three things together, again, $16.7 million levy, the loss of $275,000 in LEA, plus up to $4 million in budget reductions to balance enrollment with revenue, we're looking at a potential impact, or what we would have to reduce, amount of about $21 million. That's the total. To put that into some perspective, this last year, so during 24-25, the cuts that we made to balance our revenues and our expenditures, again, to balance our staffing with enrollment, it was about $8.9 million cut from our BEA budget. So that's our basic education budget. That consisted of 68 staff and the closure of Columbia Elementary. That total, again, $8.9 million. If we fail the levy, that's twice the amount of the reductions that we made this last year. So I'm just gonna let that sink in for a second, because it's a huge number. There's a lot at stake. So again, you saw that 10% at the beginning, that little slice. Again, we're still talking about that small slice, but the impact that it has on this district is widespread, and it will affect everyone in the district. So really incumbent on us that we make sure we do everything we can to inform our community about the importance of these dollars and why we need their support to renew them. But we want to end on some positivity, not completely doom and gloom. But again, levies are so vital to the operations of our school district to provide that well-rounded experience for our students day to day. My own kids experience and benefit from that. So I've seen it firsthand as a parent and as a taxpayer, but it covers really essential staffing costs, again, that are not paid for. They're not funded by the state. It also ensures that we maintain excellence. We maintain the programs that are award-winning, that keep kids connected and engaged to our schools, and also that attract students to come to the Wenatchee School District. Why people want to come here and be part of the Wenatchee School District are many of these programs that we offer. So again, that's why the levy at its core is so important. So a couple notes on levy timeline. As we've talked about, there's going to be a workshop where you're going to get deeper into the numbers. The board will have some conversations and more information from our friends at Piper Sandler and Foster Garvey that are going to get into a lot of the numbers and the trends and some of those pieces. So we'll go take a much deeper dive into the levy moving forward, starting on Monday. Again, in November, that's when you're going to approve that levy rate, that amount that's going to be put on the ballot in February. Ballots are mailed in on January 24th. And again, that election day is February 11th. So it comes up pretty quick. So that's why we're getting geared up right now. So how to get involved? How can you get behind the levy? How can you share information and really make sure people know about the importance of these dollars? There's such a thing as an 80-20 rule. 20% of the information is going to come from the Wenatchee School District. We are not allowed to ask voters to vote yes. We can provide factual information. We can provide videos and fact sheets and website information. So we are limited in what we can do, but we can provide really great factual information. So that's the 20%. The 80% really is the community, and it's an advocacy group that really helps move the needle on the levy itself. So sharing the information that the district creates and we put out as the factual information about the ballot measure, about the levy itself, is one thing that you can do. And then also you can take action by joining our levy advocacy committee, which is a separate committee from the Wenatchee School District that's driven by community members who are the individuals who you'll see out on the street corners waving signs and who are really taking an active role in encouraging people to get out and vote and vote yes. That is is the role of an advocacy committee. There is a meeting coming up on Wednesday, October 16th from 4 to 5:30 at the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center. That is available for anybody who would like to come and participate and learn more about getting involved with that group. And that will be facilitated by an outside person from the district. And then just getting people to get out and vote. That's something that everybody needs to be able to do and encourage, again, their friends and neighbors and their family members to make sure that they get out and vote during that special election coming up in February. So there's a lot of different ways that people can get involved depending on their ability and their capacity and their motivation behind supporting the levy. And that's right. That's my last slide. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have. And I may need to throw a no look pass to my partners, Corey and Sean, if you have some questions maybe I can't answer, but. Okay. All right. Well, we're just getting started in this space, but if you do have any further questions at this point in time, do let me know. Otherwise, we're going to talk more levy talk starting on Monday. So thank you.
That was a very good presentation, and it's good to have it done on time and promptly.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm glad to get going on it too, because as the communications person, I got to make sure that we're on track and we're on time and that we're generating our really important factual information so that as we start talking with people and we start saying the word levy and we're having conversations at Safeway or at work or in other parts of our life, that we have a place that we can point people to get some of that early information. But the campaign really won't get kind of kicked off, the communications campaign, until we get closer to February. So right now it's a lot of that behind the scenes work that we're going to start doing, but we do want to get some of that factual information about what does it fund? And again, what's the impact that it has? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. I appreciate your expertise. And especially when we talk about levy information, it can be very complex. So thank you for sharing it in a digestible format for us, because it'll get complex on Monday. And we'll be ready for that when it happens. But thank you so much. Okay. We're rocking and rolling into some policy. Is everybody ready for some policy? Ready to shift into that? Okay. We have 5 policies that we need to go over here. The first one is 2410, which is our high school graduation requirements policy. And this is the basic graduation requirement language with the necessary items that are needed for graduation. So we have completing credits, we have the high school and beyond plan, we have completing a graduation pathway, and then we have one that the Wenatchee School District has added, and that's sitting for the Smarter Balance Assessment. And so that's the piece that I think that there should be some discussion about probably at this point. But we have added that component to help change the narrative with our students and families that our state assessment is important and it is part of the complete education process. Not only does the state monitor our participation rate, it shares that rate with other districts and it shares it online. It's a public piece of information. Our participation rates have not been very exquisite over the last few years in comparison with our neighboring districts. So although meeting standard on the Smarter Balance Assessment is not a graduation requirement, it is not something that every college and university looks at. We do believe in the Wenatchee School District that sitting for the assessment is part of the graduation process and the education process. So we also know that any student who does not take the assessment, those scores count as zeros and they count against the district. So with upwards of 30% of our students not participating, we have unreliable data. So that is why we have added that as a graduation requirement. So we discussed that as the policy committee and a fairly short conversation for the most part, and we decided to move that policy forward. But I would open it up to policy committee members or any of the board members to discuss.
I guess the only question I have is I'm a little bit leery creating additional barriers to potential graduation, although, I generally support it. I think students should be assessed and at least required to participate in some way, but I do worry about the equity of doing that or are there waivers? Not every student can test very well, or I don't know what the excuses were to not be able to do it. So I just want to make sure that we are imposing something that is actually a meaningful standard versus just something to help district statistics go up.
Right. Great question. And there are still ways for a student to actually have a waiver to not take the test. We still have to honor those and respect those. But we're trying to build a foundation of changing that narrative on the fact that it is actually important for a student to sit for that test. So there will still be barriers and obstacles that we need to overcome throughout the process. And I appreciate that. We don't want to create more barriers to graduation either, but we do feel that it is important. And there has been a shift in the last few years on our community's perception of the importance of the smaller battles assessment. And I feel like some of the state policies haven't helped us with that either, as they take it away as a graduation requirement. Some of our state universities and colleges aren't looking at it as an acceptance or an entrance requirement. But we feel that it is very important and a fairly low bar to ask. But great question. Thanks, Julie.
Should this language then maybe at number 4 say unless authorized by waiver, students must attempt to sit? Because it looks pretty like definite there. The way I read that policy, then it looks like there is no ability to seek a waiver. So of course I don't want to draft language that encourages waivers because that defeats the purpose, but it looks a little misleading, like it's mandatory, there's no waiver, the way it's drafted.
Well, and that is the way that the state looks at the testing assessment, is that it is something that is mandatory and required, and we're just following the state's guidelines and guidance, although there are processes if your student cannot take that test. So, yeah.
And maybe that's something that could be, weaved into the waiver for high school graduation credits. Maybe there's a section there, because this section specifically about requirements for graduating. So
Yeah.
I don't think it should be specified, it should be spelled out in this policy. One of the things that we've all been aware for the last 5+ years is the scrutiny that goes into our state report card and our scores. When we have over 30% of our students not taking the test, it doesn't encompass the reality of where our students are testing, where they're at, because they're counted as zeros. And so a lot of our students, there is a class time allotted, there is a period, there is a test period allotted. Yes, there's going to be barriers, but I think we as a district provide those accommodations already with any testing situation.
It seems to me that there might be a mid-position arbitrage on that topic in procedures. And one of the issues I raised is when we have a new policy or a variation and we say something's going to be in the procedures, I think it's good for the board to know that we're going down that road afterwards. So actually I have 2 comments, because I had highlighted that the requirement to notify students and their parents about available dual credit programs. I believe at the moment that's not in our existing procedures, that will need to be added. So, I'm sure it will be added. And when we approve a policy like that, I think the board should know then that the changes in procedures are coming. But when you talk, it is a serious issue not taking a mandatory test. It is detrimental to the entire school district when people don't. And if I'm hearing what Corey said, that there are waivers and there are accommodations, that's why I said a in-between thing would be if we work pretty hard in our procedures to define some safe and accessible accommodations for people who legitimately are in a corner and can't change anything and do not take the test. So I think we could probably do that in the procedures and as opposed to in the policy.
Yeah, and I'll just echo, I don't support students not taking a mandatory test, and I know we have the time allotted for it and they should be taking it. So if there is another policy that comes into play in terms of for students who really can't, or there needs to be some accommodation that is still allowed, then I can get beyond just this language, because yeah, I think it is not entirely responsible to have a period for test taking when students are just saying, I don't want to go take the test, I want to go out to hang out with my friends and go to the store and whatever. I do think they need to take the test. And so I just didn't want to create any barriers unnecessarily for some. So if there's other ways to get there, that's totally fine.
We are required to follow accommodations for testing accommodations based on, I'm looking at Kelly because she probably knows a whole lot more about this. But it's a federal requirement that we do provide testing accommodations. And I'm pretty sure it's probably in some policy already as a federal requirement.
Yes, absolutely.
And I forgot to add one other thing in terms of follow-up is similarly that the notification on dual credit. Similarly, we can make sure that our procedures are very strong in prompt, timely, early notification of somebody who has a problem. So we don't have a situation that somebody ignores the test and discovers too late. I think it's really important the procedures that we not only have something that is prompt to alert somebody, but also that we enforce it administratively.
And communication to parents is going to be key as well, because we've had, this somewhat of a culture, like, oh, it's not a high school requirement. You don't have to take that test. I'll just sign the waiver. And so we need to start shifting the focus that, hey, this is a graduation requirement.
Yes, and to that point, which grade levels it impacts immediately, because that's going to be an important one that we talked about on the policy committee as well, because we have folks that have already gone past their testing window in the sophomore year and in the junior year that this would eventually impact. So we need to make sure that we have an understanding of what grade level that starts with. Is that this year's 9th graders? Is that this year's 10th graders? What is that? So we still have that work to do before the second read.
I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this, but it says students must attempt to pass the test. How are we going to monitor? And that's probably a procedural thing, but how are we monitoring whether the difference between they just sat for it, had it passed out, checked boxes just to get out of the room, or actually tried to pass the test?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I don't think we're going to actually be able to go down that road. And honestly, if a student scored below a proficient rating, that we would go back and actually have to find out, did you actually attempt this, or did you draw dots along the the answer sheet? So, or it's computer, so it's different nowadays. But yeah, that would be a hard one to actually enforce.
But ideally, that's what we want for all of our students, not just our sophomores and our juniors. They must attempt to pass.
I was just going to add that there's been a lot of evaluation in my life that I have not been able to opt out of. And so preparing students for the reality of testing or evaluation as part of their ongoing professional development or further education, I think, taking a test and knowing that is required and knowing that they're going to have to do that is an important kind of just, milestone that they're going to have to approach, hard or not.
I'm getting in the weeds here, but in the pathway to graduation, we do have a culture now where every student knows that they need to do what each job earns, their career planning, what they can. I don't see as a mentor that being ignored. And I also see follow-up to remind people who haven't done it. So I think it's a similar problem, an issue to encouraging that's the attitude, you do take the test.
Excellent. All right. Great discussion. Appreciate that. We'll have some further clarification on what grade level this will begin at before the second read. So appreciate that. Okay. The next one, 6220. This one is a fun one. Just because you just have to read it a couple times. Bid or request for proposal requirements. So basically, this is the guidance necessary for purchasing almost anything in the district, whether it's curriculum, goods and services. And there's some changes to bid law and the uses of the Interlocal Cooperation Act, allowing districts to utilize government bids, which has been very helpful for the Wenatchee School District. Initially, when the policy committee met, I had some concerns about the way that this read. I felt that in some of the language, we were missing numbers where it said below $40,000 or below $75,000 or above $100,000, Sean got me on the path of the straight and narrow, and we read it carefully together, and he explained to me where it actually it was in part B that I was having some issues with it, but it came out that the language is correct. There was some ambiguity that I needed to have explained for me. The other piece that we spent some time on is making sure that we are following the guidelines for businesses that are owned, run, and operated by women and minorities. And Sean did some work on that as well. And we are, in fact, following that part of the procedure, and we'll continue to do that. And we have had some companies, contracts, and bids from businesses owned by women and minorities. So that's a great part of that process. But we also talked about moving this one forward after those conversations. So I don't know if the policy committee or any board members have some constructive conversation around 6220.
Corey, in regards to this, the women and minority owned business, it was fascinating because at the cafe fundraising dinner, their annual dinner, there was a representative there from, I'm gonna get this wrong, the acronyms, OWMB. Did I get that right, Sean? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? And they actually said, she said that they have a list of state approved, so she gave me her business card. I'm like, oh, I put it somewhere to give to Sean. I don't know where it is, but we have a local representative here in Wenatchee. So I thought, oh, this is aligned with this policy. I'm learning a whole lot more about bids and whatnot. But yeah, I learned something new at that dinner.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing.
I live in this world and it looks good to me. No, I only had to read it once because it all made sense because I do public procurements all the time. There were some changes that maybe we need to look into in the future if we're going to update this policy at some point, because there were some changes this year with the ability to use apprentices for certain projects over a certain level. It won't affect most of our stuff, but if we end up in a project in the millions of dollars, there's an apprentice. There were changes to use of apprentices, but.
Okay, well, that's good for us to have as we move into the tech center
Right.
project management program. Great.
But yes, that OMDB or it's a website maintained by the state with all the contractors listed for easy access. And it provides forms for notices you can send out with your procurement projects. So spent a little time there, but this looks good to me. I mean, it was, complies with the law. I had no issues.
Excellent. Are there other thoughts or discussion?
Office of Minority and Women's Business Enterprises.
There it is.
The internet, we all have it.
That's right. Thank you. I like it. Okay, well, with that acronym spelled out, we'll move on to 3206, pregnant and parenting students. Protection and equal treatment for anyone who has been or is pregnant or parenting. It also outlines the investigation and grievance process along with the retaliation and false allegations process as well. We had very little conversation about this. We felt that it was a good protection for our students and want to move that forward. Is there any other discussion or conversation?
This is a requirement for the Title IX changes.
Excellent. Okay, we will move on to contracting for transportation services, 6690. Contracting for student transportation must follow district rules and regulations and will not be in effect for longer than 5 years. We do not do this in the Wenatchee School District, but this is a policy that would outline if we ever looked into contracting for transportation services. And the cost cannot exceed the proposed cost of the district running its own transportation services. Any thoughts or conversation on this policy?
I know it's one we don't necessarily need, but in these challenging financial times, I see it being one that we probably still need to have. I think it was a little bit eye-opening going to an event against Moses Lake, and when the crowd chants get the buses or whatever, they yell back, "We don't have any."
Oh.
So not to make light of it, but just realizing that we may not always have the luxury of robust transportation service and need to be more creative.
Yes.
So, because yeah, I thought I had heard you say we were getting rid of this policy and I was like, I don't know if that sounds good.
Nope.
So seeing the
Nope.
changes actually makes sense and with the changing financial times, probably a good thing to keep it on the books.
Excellent. Okay, well said. Then the last one is emergencies, 3432. This one reiterates a commitment to safe and secure buildings. It outlines the basic response functions in an emergency and additional drills as written in the policy. The policy uses our standard response protocol that is on the back of all of our ID badges as well. Yeah, we had a little bit of discussion, but not much here, moving it forward. I think our discussion was making sure that it was in alignment with what we all have on our ID badges. So any conversation or discussion here? All right, excellent. Well, that completes our first read of our policies, and we'll come back later in October with a second read. All right. Thank you. Let's see, are we moving on to?
No action. So there's superintendent reports.
All right, we're going to keep this stream alive. And at our last school board meeting, we had an exciting update from our athletic department from Principal Athletic Director Eric Anderson. He explained a variety of updates from the athletic department, including the work that they're doing around culture, responsibility, sportsmanship, professionalism. And he also described the responsibilities between himself and the as the athletic director, and then Tammy Giacomazzi as our athletic coordinator. And I urge you to take a moment, if you didn't see that, take a moment and watch the video recording of the presentation that can be found on our website or on our YouTube channel. But one thing that has been brought up since the presentation is how much does the district actually save with the current structure of the athletic department? And so I just wanted to share a little bit about that cost breakdown of the positions. The first one is for Principal Anderson is not being compensated additionally above and beyond his existing salary. So I just wanted to make that known and that stated. And the athletic coordinator is working on a teacher's contract, or a TOSA is what we call that, a teacher on special assignment. So the savings there is about $97,000 annually versus what the cost would have been to bring in a full-time athletic director. But I also want to be clear that as Principal Athletic Director Eric Anderson said in his presentation, the current structure is only temporary. As we discussed it being a 1 to 2 year solution while we work through budget reductions. We are currently in the first quarter of year 1 right now. And we will eventually be bringing back that athletic director position to the Wenatchee School District. So I just want to clarify that for our board who knows that, and then our community as well, who might have some questions on that. So also want to add that October is National Principals Month. So we are grateful for the dedication and the hard work of our principals and assistant principals in the Wenatchee School District. Their leadership and commitment to providing thriving environments and high quality instruction for all of our students is greatly appreciated. We also, softball field update. We're happy to announce that our girls slow pitch softball team practiced yesterday at Triangle Park softball complex and played 2 games today, which I just texted athletic director Eric Anderson. He said they won them both. So that's fantastic. Yes. So they have evidently something needs to happen Thursday. Maybe we split the games on Thursday, or but we have the opportunity to play in a playoff game on Tuesday at Triangle Park again. So that's amazing. And just to share, we've seen tonight that there are amazing opportunities for our students in the Wenatchee School District. We are able to provide so much in the district to help enrich and support our students. There is truly nothing else quite comparable to the educational opportunities we provide for our students. And so we saw that tonight with our mariachi here as well. But I also wanted to share that earlier this month, our FFA presented their animals at the Chelan County Fair in Cashmere. Huge congratulations to the 5 Wenatchee High School champions. We had 2 seniors, 1 11th grader, and a 12th grader who were named as various grand champions during the fair. So nice work. Also at Wenatchee Valley Tech Center, the digital media class received $10,000 grant for new cameras. And from Film Workforce Development. So they purchased these 3 new cameras and monitors, and evidently they're of the same caliber as the ones that NCW Life channel uses as well. And the students were able to put them into action over the weekend. I talked to their teacher, Eric Link, on Monday, and he said that they filmed the Wenatchee Symphony over the weekend. They had performances on Friday and Saturday night at the auditorium, and they'll be doing that 4 more times this year as well. So it's exciting. And then finally, on Wednesday, September 27th, the Wenatchee School District held its first restructuring meeting. And so the 12-member team had a great first meeting. We were able to meet and greet everyone because it's a new team. We have new members, so we have to get to know everyone. And we began our journey of learning about school district budgets and understanding the data around school enrollment. And as mentioned here at the school board, our goal is to assess, plan, and propose potential plans for restructuring as needed within the school district, addressing enrollment and ensuring the effective utilization of our resources. And just today, Diana, thank you, Diana. She has created a new website that is linked to our budget website for the restructuring committee information to be housed there so that everyone in the public and in the community can see that work. So, yeah, I think it is. Yes. Yeah. So thank you for that. I appreciate that happened today. So I appreciate that. And that is the superintendent's update.
You want to say that one more time, just for the video and the audience?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mic. If you go to wenatcheeschools.org/budget, and if you're looking at it on desktop, on the right-hand side navigation, you should see a restructuring committee. If you're on a mobile device, it'll be at the bottom, and you click on that link and it'll take you to the restructuring page, and you can see the most recent presentation from that first restructuring meeting on the 24th, it was, I think.
Was it the 24th?
I don't remember.
Or 27th?
I don't know, too many meetings.
It
So,
was, yes.
anyways, it's right there. It's
Yeah.
posted so people can review that.
And that's why her title is Director of Communication and Amazingness.
So I haven't seen that site yet. Do we have it in dual language yet, or is there a bit of a delay to get it into?
Our site can be translated into any language, which is, well, not any language, but multiple languages. Yes.
So
So
we typically posted English, Spanish, and most.
For the purpose of this, for our budget website, we did post everything manually in dual language. However, as Corey stated, in the upper right-hand corner of any of our websites, you can click on the translate button and choose from 126 different languages. And it will translate all the content that's in there, but what it won't translate is the PDF that's in there, which was the presentation that was done during the committee meeting. So that is one thing that is not available in Spanish, but it is in its current format. You can view all of the content except for the PDF using that translate button. Yeah.
Next up, board communication. Start at Miranda's in. Yep. I picked on that in last time.
Okay. I don't really have anything other than, so as of last week for WASDA, for the elections, they're now open and they close next week on the 16th at 2. So if you haven't done that, I really encourage everyone on our board to vote because it pertains in our specific district. So for the state, it would be for the president and vice president that would represent for WASDA and our committees and our board of directors and officers, and then our specific area 7 representatives for our legislative committee. Yes, I am on that ballot, and our resolution and our resolutions committee as well. Yes, I believe, yes, they're all unopposed, but still it's important because I do believe our president and vice president roles are being contested. And then we will know those results come when we go to the WASDA conference. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. Tucker.
I had a couple things. I was volunteering with the hearing and vision screenings at Mission View and Washington the last 2 weeks. And I want to say thank you to all of the volunteers and big kudos to the nursing staff that ran a pretty tight ship. We saw all the kids and they were like just balls of energy, but very structured balls of energy. So that was an exciting experience. And then I also forgot, both Martin and I forgot to talk about the AM movement partnership that the district's been working with. We went to a presentation, 2 weeks ago now? Yeah. And that's been a great opportunity for a lot of high school students to have a job, learn some real job skills, and save a lot of energy. So it's been a really cool partnership, and it was really cool to learn about it.
Martin.
I have one promotion. Next Thursday on the 17th is Migrant Family Night. So camera there. There'll be opportunities for math and language support at home for parents. There'll be entertainment, childcare available, and encourage everybody who is interested in that to take advantage of it. But as a lead into that, since the last board meeting, the Parent Advisory Committee had their elections. There are now 5 members, not 3, of the board. So we now have 2 additional excellent members, so that there is the opportunity for continuity, because 3 of our members will have their terms expire by statute. And the other exciting thing is that we have 2 juniors who I was extremely impressed by as representatives on the board. And they will also be there for 2 years, so we'll have some continuity. One of them, actually, Corey, is on your Superintendent's Advisory Council. So we have high-quality students showing up, doing great work everywhere. And then the final thing I wanted to add is this coming weekend is a quarterly State Advisory Committee meeting. And I believe that we will have one of our officers becoming a parent representative on that committee, a person who's currently the Sergeant at Arms. So Wenatchee and actually NCSD locally, the region, will be represented at state. So a lot of building stronger organizations has been happening in that area.
I don't have much, but I did enjoy being able to make it out to the opening game for the softball field complex. I know there's still some things that need to happen to fully finish it, but it was amazing to see what actually did happen in the partnerships with the city to help be able to make sure that we were able to get the girls on the field today. And I'm really hopeful that whatever happens that needs to happen so they can play at least one more game on their field next week, because it is a great facility, long overdue, and I was very excited to see them out there and get to enjoy it. Other than that, I've been chasing around the girls soccer team who are now 9-1 and leading the league and 5th in state. So they are doing well, and a big shout out to their bus driver on Saturday who got them back in time to make it to the Battle of the Bridges game. No stops.
Hold on.
Got them pizza though. All right, that's it. So it looks like we will adjourn, and then I understand we've got a closed session after. So, all right, meeting adjourned.